I'm ashamed to be seen with you. My daughter's voice cut through the crowded supermarket like a knife. People turned to stare. A woman with a shopping cart froze mid-aisle. An elderly man looked away quickly, embarrassed for me. 15-year-old Maya stood 3 feet away from me, her arms crossed, her face twisted in disgust. She wasn't whispering. She wanted everyone to hear. You dress like you don't even try. You embarrass me everywhere we go. My hands trembled as I held the grocery basket. The fluorescent lights suddenly felt too bright. My worn jeans and faded sweater, clean but old, felt like they were burning into my skin. Maya, please, I whispered. We can talk about this at home.
No.
I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when you make me look bad just by existing. She turned and walked toward the exit, leaving me standing there with a basket full of groceries and a heart full of shame. Strangers pretended not to stare, but I felt every glance. As I watched her disappear through the automatic doors, something clicked in my mind. The words were too sharp, too rehearsed. This wasn't spontaneous anger. This was learned cruelty. My name is Veronica Hayes. I'm 38 years old, originally from Austin, Texas, and I work as a library assistant in Portland, Oregon. If you're interested in stories about family, betrayal, and finding your strength when everything seems lost, please subscribe to this channel for more fascinating stories like this one. The drive home was silent. Maya sat in the passenger seat, staring at her phone, her jaw set in that stubborn way that reminded me too much of her grandmother. When we pulled into the driveway of our modest 2-story house, she grabbed her backpack and went straight to her room without a word. The door slammed so hard the picture frames on the hallway wall shook. I found my husband, Kenneth, in his home office, reviewing spreadsheets on his laptop. He barely looked up when I entered. Maya just humiliated me in public, I said quietly. In the middle of the grocery store. She said she was ashamed to be seen with me. Kenneth sighed and rubbed his temples. Veronica, she's 15. It's just teen drama. You're being too sensitive. Too sensitive? Kenneth, she said these things in front of strangers. Teenagers say things they don't mean. My mother went through the same thing with me at that age. He turned back to his laptop. Just give her space. She'll get over it. I stood there, waiting for him to ask if I was okay, waiting for him to care that his daughter had shredded my dignity in public. But he just kept typing. From downstairs, I heard the front door open. My mother-in-law's voice drifted up the stairs. Kenneth? Veronica? I brought dinner. Beatrice Walsh, my mother-in-law, stood in our kitchen arranging takeout containers like she owned the place. She had her own key, given to her by Kenneth years ago, and she used it freely. Oh, Veronica, she said when she saw me. You look tired. Rough day. There was something in her smile that made my stomach turn. Not quite sympathy. More like satisfaction. Maya and I had a difficult moment at the store, I said carefully. Teenagers can be so dramatic. She opened our cabinets like they were hers, pulling out plates. But, you know, sometimes they see things we don't want to admit about ourselves. What does that mean? She turned to face me, her expression pleasant, but her eyes cold. Just that young people are honest. Brutally so. Maybe there's truth in what she said. Kenneth appeared in the doorway. Mom brought Chinese food. How thoughtful, I said, my voice flat. Later that night, I was folding laundry in the hallway when I heard Beatrice on her phone in the guest bathroom. The door was slightly ajar. She doesn't even see it. Beatrice's voice was low, but clear. The girl is embarrassed, and who can blame her? If Veronica had any self-awareness, she'd understand why. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. Kenneth won't do anything about it. He never does. The call from Maya's teacher came 3 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reshelving books at the library. Mrs. Hayes? This is Mrs. Caldwell, Maya's English teacher. I was wondering if you could come in tomorrow after school. There's something I'd like to discuss with you. Her tone was careful, almost gentle. The kind of voice people use when they're about to tell you something that will hurt. Is Maya in trouble? I asked. Not exactly, but I think it's important we talk in person. The next day, I sat across from Mrs. Caldwell in her small classroom. Student essays covered the walls, and the smell of dry erase markers hung in the air. She was younger than me, maybe 30, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know this is unusual, but I felt it was necessary." She reached into a folder on her desk and pulled out several sheets of paper stapled together. Her hand hesitated before sliding them across the desk toward me. "This is Maya's latest essay assignment. The prompt was to write about someone who influences them. I think you should read it." My hands shook as I picked up the papers. The title of Maya's essay was "The Woman I Don't Want to Become." I started reading, and each sentence felt like a wound. My mother is the kind of person who has given up on herself. She dresses in clothes from discount stores and never bothers with makeup or doing her hair properly. She works at a library, which is a job for people who can't do anything better. When I see her, I see everything I'm afraid of becoming: invisible, unimportant, and stuck. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. But I kept reading. "My grandmother says it's important to have standards and to never settle for less than you deserve. She says my mother settled for an ordinary life because she didn't have the strength or intelligence to do better. My grandmother is elegant and sophisticated. She knows how to present herself to the world. She's teaching me how to be a woman of value." The cruelty was stunning. But underneath it, I noticed something else. Certain phrases felt rehearsed, borrowed. This wasn't entirely Maya's voice. My biggest fear is ending up like my mother, ignored and overlooked. My grandmother tells me that I'm better than that I have potential my mother never had. She says watching me succeed will make up for my mother's failures. Mrs. Caldwell watched me carefully as I finished reading. "Mrs. Hayes," she said gently, "this didn't start with your daughter." Mrs. Caldwell leaned forward, her hands folded on the desk. "I've been teaching for 8 years, she said. I've seen troubled kids, angry kids, kids lashing out. But Maya's essay troubled me for different reasons. The language is too adult, too calculated. These aren't the authentic thoughts of a 15-year-old girl." "What are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew. Someone has been coaching her. Someone has been feeding her these ideas, these specific phrases. The repetition of "my grandmother says" appears 17 times in a 5-page essay. 17 times. "Has Maya mentioned any issues at home?" Mrs. Caldwell asked carefully. I thought about Beatrice's daily visits. The way she pulled Maya aside for private conversations. The shopping trips and lunches, just the two of them. The whispered phone calls. "My mother-in-law is very involved in Maya's life," I said slowly. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm not a psychologist, but I've seen this pattern before. This reads like emotional manipulation, not teenage rebellion. Your daughter isn't being cruel because she wants to be. She's being cruel because she's been taught that it's acceptable, maybe even necessary." I sat there, the essay still in my hands, and thought about the past 5 years since Beatrice had moved to Portland to be closer to family. 5 years of small comments, tiny criticisms, gentle suggestions about my clothes, my hair, my job, my worth. Always said quietly, always denied later. That evening, I made sure Maya was upstairs doing homework before I confronted Kenneth in our bedroom. I closed the door and handed him the essay. "Read this, please." He skimmed it, his expression barely changing. When he finished, he set it on the dresser. "It's harsh," he admitted, "but teenagers write dramatic things. Remember, this is for a creative writing assignment. Kenneth, your mother's name appears 17 times. 17. She's systematically teaching our daughter to hate me. That's ridiculous. My mother loves you." "No, she doesn't. She's never loved me. And she's poisoning Maya against me." Kenneth's jaw tightened. "My mother has been nothing but helpful to this family. She watches Maya when we need her. She brings dinner. She's supportive. She's destroying me, and you're letting her. You're being paranoid. This is about Maya being a difficult teenager, not some conspiracy theory involving my mother."
He walked to the door, then paused.
"My mother means well, Veronica. She's old-fashioned, And maybe her advice is outdated, but she's not malicious. You're just going to have to endure some criticism. That's part of being in a family. Endure. That word sat heavy in my chest as he left the room. I stood there alone, and something inside me shifted. Endurance was what had brought me here, to this moment of complete humiliation. Endurance had allowed tiny cuts to become deep wounds. Endurance was over. The next morning, I woke up with a strange clarity. I made breakfast quietly, got ready for work without saying much. When Beatrice let herself in around lunchtime, I greeted her politely but briefly. "I'm heading to work," I said. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge if Maya gets hungry." "You look different today," Beatrice said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "New outfit?"
No.
Same clothes as always. But something had changed, and she sensed it. For the first time in years, I didn't apologize for existing in my own home. At work, I started a small notebook. I documented every interaction with Beatrice. Dates, times, what was said, who was present. I noted every time Maya repeated phrases that sounded too adult, too polished. "You're writing a lot," my coworker Felix commented, seeing the notebook on my desk during lunch. "Just keeping track of things," I said. "Everything okay at home?" I looked at him, this kind man I'd worked with for 3 years, and decided to be honest.
No.
But it will be. I stopped trying to win Beatrice's approval. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped reacting to her subtle digs and quiet criticisms. When she commented on my hair, I said, "I like it this way." When she suggested I dress better, I said, "These clothes suit me fine." When she implied I was holding Kenneth back, I said nothing at all, and simply left the room. My silence wasn't submission anymore. It was strategy. Beatrice didn't like the change. I could see it in how her comments became sharper, less subtle. One evening, she arrived during dinner and immediately criticized the meal. "Store-bought pasta sauce? Veronica, I've offered to teach you how to make proper sauce from scratch. A wife should take pride in feeding her family well." "This suits our schedule," I said calmly, not looking up from my plate. "Maya, dear, when you have your own family, you'll want to do better than this." Maya glanced between us, uncertain. "I like Mom's cooking," she said quietly. Beatrice's smile tightened. "Of course you do, sweetheart. You don't know any better yet." Later that week, Beatrice took Maya shopping. They came back with bags from expensive stores, clothes that cost more than I made in a week. "Look what Grandma bought me," Maya said, holding up a designer dress. "That's very generous," I said to Beatrice. "Well, someone needs to make sure the poor girl has decent things to wear. I know finances are tight for you and Kenneth." Finances weren't tight. Kenneth made good money as an accountant. But Beatrice needed to frame me as inadequate, and she was getting bolder about it. That night, I heard her in Maya's room, their voices low. "Your mother just doesn't understand style, darling. But you do. You're like me." The mistake came during a Saturday barbecue at our house. Kenneth had invited his colleague Trevor Nguyen and his wife Ramona. They were good people, kind and observant. Beatrice arrived early and immediately began rearranging my kitchen, commenting loudly about my interesting organizational choices. When the Nguyen's arrived, Beatrice was in full form. She hugged them warmly, played the gracious grandmother, and then turned to me. "Veronica, dear, why don't you go change into something more presentable? We have guests." I was wearing clean jeans and a nice blouse. There was nothing wrong with my outfit. "I'm comfortable as I am," I said. "But surely you want to make a good impression?" Her smile was tight, her eyes hard. Ramona shifted uncomfortably. Trevor looked away. "I think Veronica looks lovely," Ramona said carefully. Beatrice laughed, a brittle sound. "You're sweet to say so. But we both know she could do better if she tried." I keep telling her, a little effort goes a long way. But some people are just content with mediocrity. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. Kenneth was manning the grill, oblivious. Maya was upstairs. Trevor cleared his throat. "Actually, Mrs. Walsh, that was pretty rude." Beatrice blinked, surprised. "I'm just being honest." Honesty is important in families. Cruelty disguised as honesty is still cruelty, Ramona said quietly. After the Gwynns left early, claiming a sudden headache, I found Maya sitting on the back porch steps. She'd been upstairs but must have heard the exchange. Mom, her voice was small. Can I ask you something? I sat down beside her. Of course. Why do you let Grandma talk to you like that? The question hung between us. I thought carefully about my answer. For a long time, I thought if I just endured it, if I just stayed quiet and didn't make waves, things would get better. I thought your dad would eventually see what was happening and step in. I thought your grandmother might soften. But she hasn't.
No.
She hasn't. Maya picked at the hem of her shirt, one of the expensive ones Beatrice had bought her.
She tells me things about you.
About how you're not ambitious. About how you settled for less. She says if I'm not careful, I'll end up like you. The honesty was brutal, but I appreciated it. And what do you think? I asked. Do you believe her? Maya was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't know. She sounds so sure. Like she knows things I don't. She knows one thing very well, I said. She knows how to make people feel small. But that doesn't make her right about who I am or who you'll become. I saw something shift in Maya's expression. Not quite understanding, but the beginning of doubt. She was starting to watch instead of just repeating. Over the next week, I noticed Maya observing things. She watched how Beatrice criticized my cooking, my clothes, my hair. She watched how Kenneth nodded along or changed the subject. She watched how I responded now with calm, quiet dignity instead of apology. One night at dinner, Beatrice made another comment about my appearance. Veronica, have you considered updating your wardrobe? Maya and I saw the cutest things at Nordstrom today. You really should invest in yourself. I'm happy with what I have, I said simply. But don't you want to look nice for Kenneth? Maya looked at her father. Kenneth was absorbed in his phone, not paying attention. Dad doesn't care what Mom wears, Maya said suddenly. Beatrice's smile froze. Of course he does, dear. All men care about how their wives present themselves. Then why isn't he listening right now? Kenneth looked up, confused. What? Grandma's criticizing Mom's clothes again and you're not even paying attention. Maya, don't be disrespectful to your grandmother, Kenneth said automatically. But Maya's eyes were on me now, really seeing me for the first time in months. Seeing how I held myself together while being systematically torn down. Seeing how her father enabled it. Seeing how her grandmother orchestrated it all. I'm going to my room, Maya said quietly. She left her plate on the table and walked upstairs. Beatrice watched her go, something like alarm crossing her face. The family gathering was Beatrice's idea. A casual Sunday brunch at her condo, just immediate family. Kenneth, Maya, and me. I almost declined, but I wanted to see how this would play out now that things were shifting. Beatrice's condo was immaculate, decorated in whites and creams, everything carefully curated. She served mimosas and made small talk, playing the perfect hostess. Then, as we sat down to eat, she struck. Veronica, I've been meaning to ask. Do they have opportunities for advancement at that little library of yours? Or is this as far as you'll go career-wise? The question was designed to humiliate. In the past, I would have made excuses or changed the subject. I'm happy in my position, I said. I help people find books that change their lives. It's meaningful work. Meaningful, Beatrice repeated with a small laugh. Well, I suppose someone has to do the simple jobs. Not everyone can be ambitious. I set down my fork carefully. Actually, library science requires a master's degree. I have one. What was your highest level of education? The table went silent. Beatrice's mouth opened and closed. I was raised in a time when women didn't need careers, she said stiffly. Exactly. So perhaps you're not the best person to judge my professional choices. Kenneth made a small sound, somewhere between surprise and alarm. Maya stared at me with wide eyes. Beatrice's composure cracked slightly. I'm simply trying to help you improve yourself. I don't need improvement. I need respect. No one laughed at Beatrice's next comment about my hair. Kenneth shifted uncomfortably. Maya looked down at her plate. The power dynamic in the room had shifted, and everyone felt it. Beatrice tried again. Well, we all want what's best for this family. Sometimes that means accepting constructive criticism. What you offer isn't constructive, I said calmly. It's destructive. And I'm no longer accepting it. Kenneth, are you going to let her speak to me this way? Kenneth looked trapped, caught between his mother and his wife in a way he'd always avoided before. Mom, maybe we should all just calm down and enjoy brunch. Calm down? I'm trying to help, and I'm being attacked for it. Helping would be supporting me, I said. What you're doing is tearing me down and teaching my daughter that it's acceptable to treat people with contempt. Beatrice stood up abruptly. I think this brunch is over. We gathered our things in awkward silence. As we left, I caught Beatrice's expression. The smug confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked like fear. Her control was slipping, and she knew it. In the car, Maya asked, Mom, was Grandma trying to help, or was she being mean? What do you think? I asked. Maya was quiet for a moment. Then, I think she was being mean. But she always made it sound like she was helping. That's how manipulation works, I said gently. The call came 2 days later. Kenneth's cousin Miranda wanted to meet for coffee. We'd always gotten along well, though we didn't see each other often. I heard about the brunch, Miranda said as soon as we sat down. Actually, I've been hearing things for a while. What kind of things? Beatrice talks. A lot. She tells anyone who'll listen about your shortcomings. Your clothes, your job, how you're not good enough for Kenneth. I always wondered why he put up with it. My hands wrapped around my coffee cup. Did you ever say anything? I tried once. Kenneth said I was overreacting, that his mother just had high standards. He said the same to me for years. Miranda leaned forward. Veronica, I need you to know something. Last Christmas, at the family party, I heard Beatrice tell Maya that you were an embarrassment to the family. She said it would be better if Kenneth had married someone else. Maya was crying. The revelation hit me hard. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to, but I wasn't sure if I should get involved. Now I regret not speaking up sooner. That little girl shouldn't be put in the middle of this. She's not in the middle anymore, I said quietly. She's starting to see what's really happening. Miranda squeezed my hand. Several of us in the family have noticed. We've been waiting for someone to finally stand up to Beatrice. She's been getting away with this behavior for decades. I wasn't alone. That realization gave me strength. That evening, I found Maya in her room, staring at her phone but not really seeing it. I knocked softly on the doorframe. Can we talk? She nodded, and I sat on the edge of her bed. Maya, I need you to be honest with me. What exactly has your grandmother been telling you about me? Maya's eyes filled with tears. She said that if I ended up like you, my life would be small and unimportant. She said you settled for less because you weren't smart enough or pretty enough to do better. She said Dad could have done better, but he felt sorry for you. Each word was a knife, but I kept my expression calm. She said that spending too much time with you would make me ordinary, that I needed to be careful not to absorb your lack of ambition. And you believed her? She was so confident. She acted like she was protecting me, like she was the only one who really cared about my future. Maya, your grandmother is wrong. About me, about you, about what makes a life valuable. I'm starting to see that, Maya whispered. But I said such terrible things to you. At the store, in my essay, all those times I was rude. You were being manipulated. That's not the same as being cruel by choice. Maya started crying for real then, and I held her while she released months of confusion and guilt. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. The next day, I called Beatrice and asked her to come over. Kenneth was at work, and Maya was at school. She arrived with her usual confidence, letting herself in with her key. I took the key from her hand. What's this about? She asked, surprised. This is about boundaries. You will no longer have unsupervised access to Maya. You will no longer make comments about my appearance, my job, or my worth. And you will no longer let yourself into my home without permission. Her eyes narrowed. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You've spent years trying to destroy my relationship with my daughter. It stops now. Kenneth will never allow this. He respects my role in this family. Kenneth will have to choose. But regardless of what he decides, you will not have access to Maya unless I'm present. And if you continue to disrespect me, you won't have access at all. Beatrice's face went red. You ungrateful woman. Everything I've done has been to help this family. To help that girl avoid becoming a failure like you. There it is. The truth you've been hiding behind helping and concern. You've been cruel because you enjoy it. Because it makes you feel superior. How dare you? I am Kenneth's mother. I have every right to be involved in my granddaughter's life. Not anymore. Not like this. She exploded. Beatrice's composure shattered completely. Her carefully maintained facade of concern and elegance crumbled, revealing the cruelty underneath. You think you can push me out of my son's life? Out of my granddaughter's life? You're nothing, Veronica. You always have been. A mediocre woman with a mediocre life, dragging my son down with you. I stood perfectly still, letting her show who she really was. Kenneth deserved better. He deserved someone accomplished, someone elegant, someone worthy of the Walsh name. Instead, he got you, and I've spent years trying to mitigate the damage. Mitigate the damage? I repeated calmly.
Yes.
Someone needed to make sure Maya didn't turn out like you. Someone needed to save her from your influence. I've been protecting her from becoming ordinary, from settling for a small, insignificant life like yours. By teaching her to hate her own mother? By teaching her standards. By teaching her not to accept mediocrity. What Beatrice didn't know was that Kenneth had come home early. He stood in the hallway, his briefcase still in his hand, listening to his mother eviscerate his wife with the kind of viciousness that couldn't be excused or explained away. Mom? His voice was quiet but sharp. Beatrice spun around. For a moment, I saw fear cross her face. Kenneth, darling, you don't understand. I heard exactly what you were doing. Every word. Kenneth set down his briefcase slowly. His face was pale, and his hands shook slightly. How long? He asked. How long have you been saying these things? Kenneth, let me explain. How long have you been poisoning my daughter against her mother? How long have you been destroying my wife in your attempt to control this family? Beatrice drew herself up. I have only ever wanted what's best for you and Maya. If Veronica had been a stronger woman, a better wife, none of this would have been necessary. Get out. What? Get out of my house. Give Veronica your key and get out. Kenneth, I'm your mother. You can't choose this woman over me. I'm choosing my family, my wife and my daughter. You've made it clear that you're not interested in being part of this family unless you can control and manipulate it. Beatrice looked between us, realizing she'd finally gone too far. You'll regret this.
Both of you.
When Maya realizes what she's lost, when she sees that I was only trying to guide her. Maya already knows, I said quietly. She's figured out what you've been doing. And she's choosing to stand with me. Beatrice's face crumpled for just a moment before hardening again. She placed her key on the table with a sharp click and walked to the door. Don't come crying to me when this all falls apart, she said to Kenneth. Then she left. The house was silent. Kenneth stood frozen in the hallway. When he finally looked at me, there were tears in his eyes. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I should have seen it years ago. The apology was too little, too late. That night, after Maya went to bed, Kenneth and I sat in the living room and had the conversation we should have had years ago. I knew my mother was critical, he said. But I didn't realize the extent of it. I didn't see how deep it went. You didn't want to see, I corrected. Because seeing it would have required you to choose. And choosing would have been uncomfortable. That's not fair. It's completely fair. For 5 years, Kenneth, your mother has been systematically destroying me in front of you, and you dismissed every concern I raised. You called me sensitive. You told me to endure it. You chose your comfort over my dignity. He couldn't argue with that. What do you want me to do? He asked. I want you to understand that the damage is done. I spent years believing that my clothes weren't good enough, my job wasn't good enough, that I wasn't good enough. Your mother convinced our daughter that I was something to be ashamed of, and you let it happen. I'll make it right. I don't know if you can. 2 weeks later, I moved into a small apartment across town. Not a dramatic storm out, but a firm, clear boundary. I needed space to heal, and I needed to know if Kenneth could actually change, or if he was just reacting to being caught. Maya came with me. Living separately showed me how much of my life had been consumed by managing Beatrice's cruelty and Kenneth's avoidance. In my small apartment, I decorated the way I wanted. I wore the clothes I liked. I worked at the library without apologizing for finding meaning in it. Maya flourished too. Without Beatrice's constant criticism, she relaxed. We cooked together, watched movies, and talked about real things. She stopped trying to be the perfect granddaughter and started being herself again. Kenneth called every day. He sent flowers. He went to therapy. He even confronted his father about Beatrice's behavior over the years. But it was what happened with Beatrice that showed me the true cost of her cruelty. Without me there to belittle, without Maya to manipulate, Beatrice found herself alone. Kenneth maintained minimal contact. Other family members, emboldened by our stand, began setting their own boundaries. The invitations to family events dried up. She called me 6 weeks after I'd left. Veronica, we need to talk. We don't actually.
Please.
I think we can work this out. For Maya's sake. Maya is fine. Better than fine, actually. Kenneth is barely speaking to me. The family is treating me like a pariah. You've turned everyone against me. I didn't turn anyone against you, Beatrice. Your own behavior did that. People are just finally seeing clearly. I may have been too harsh, she admitted, and it was probably the closest she'd ever come to an apology. But I only wanted what was best.
No.
You wanted control. And when you couldn't control me, you tried to turn my daughter against me. That's not love. That's not family. That's abuse. So, what happens now? Now you live with the consequences of your choices. I hung up the phone and felt no guilt. No obligation to rescue her from the loneliness she'd created. No need to smooth things over or be the bigger person. Maya had been listening from the kitchen doorway. Was that Grandma? Yes. What did she want? She wanted me to make everything okay again. To let her back into our lives without any real acknowledgement of what she did. What did you say? I said no. Maya nodded slowly. Good. Is that okay to say? Is it okay that I don't miss her?
It's completely okay.
You can love someone and still need boundaries. You can recognize that someone hurt you and choose not to give them the chance to do it again. You're really strong, Mom, Maya said quietly. I didn't see it before, but I do now. Strength isn't about enduring abuse, I told her. It's about knowing when to walk away from it. 3 months after I'd left, Kenneth asked if we could meet for coffee. He looked tired but different. More aware, more present. I'm in therapy, he said. Working through why I allowed my mother to treat you that way. My therapist says I was taught from childhood to protect her feelings above everyone else's, including my own. That's insightful. It doesn't excuse it. I failed you, Veronica. I failed Maya. And I'm not asking you to come back or forgive me. I just want you to know that I finally see it. All of it. I appreciated his honesty, even if it didn't change anything. The school's spring showcase was in April. Maya had been working on a project for weeks, and she'd asked both Kenneth and me to attend. We sat separately in the auditorium, Kenneth 3 rows behind me. When Maya's name was called, she walked confidently to the stage and stood behind a microphone. My project is called Finding Strength, she announced. It's about my mom. She clicked to the first slide, a photo of me at the library, helping a young girl find a book. For a long time, I thought strength meant being loud, being noticed, being important in obvious ways. I thought my mom was weak because she was quiet, because she had a simple job, because she didn't demand attention. Another slide, me at home, reading on the couch. But I was wrong. Real strength is quieter than that. It's getting up every day and being kind even when people are cruel to you. It's working hard at a job you love, even when others say it's not important enough. It's protecting your children by teaching them dignity and self-respect. More slides. Us cooking together, laughing at the kitchen table, walking in the park. My mom spent years being told she wasn't good enough, being criticized and diminished. And she never fought back with cruelty. She never became bitter. She just quietly proved that strength isn't about tearing others down. It's about building yourself up. I felt tears streaming down my face. I wrote some terrible things about my mom earlier this year. I'm ashamed of those words. But she showed me grace and patience, and she taught me that it's never too late to recognize your mistakes and grow from them. The audience applauded. Maya caught my eye and smiled. After the showcase, we stood together in the lobby. People approached to compliment Maya's project. And then I saw Beatrice standing near the exit alone. She'd seen everything. The presentation, the applause, the obvious bond between Maya and me. For just a moment, our eyes met. I saw regret there, real regret, mixed with the realization of everything she'd lost. Then she turned and left. 2 days later, Maya brought home her final essay for English class. Mrs. Caldwell had given them another personal writing assignment. "Mom, can you read this?" Maya asked nervously. The title was Resilience. I read it slowly, savoring every word. She wrote about watching me handle criticism with grace, about learning that a person's worth isn't determined by their job or their clothes or their ability to meet others' impossible standards, about understanding that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to be diminished. My mother works at a library, she wrote. She helps people discover stories that change their lives. She dresses comfortably because she values function over fashion. She lives a quiet life because she finds peace in simplicity. None of these things make her less valuable. They make her exactly who she is, someone who knows what matters and refuses to pretend otherwise. She wrote about her grandmother, too, about how manipulation can disguise itself as love, about how cruelty can hide behind concern, about how important it is to recognize when someone is trying to control you by making you ashamed of the people who truly love you. The essay ended with this. My mother taught me that strength isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention or recognition. It simply exists, steady and sure, even when the world tries to break it. That's the kind of woman I want to become. I looked up at Maya through tears. This is beautiful. Mrs. Caldwell wants to submit it to a youth writing contest. Is that okay? It's more than okay. I'm so proud of you. 6 months after I'd left, Kenneth and I decided to try again. Real marriage counseling this time, with clear boundaries and honest communication. It wasn't easy, and some days I still wasn't sure it would work. But we were trying, truly trying for the first time. I moved into a new house, one that Beatrice had never set foot in. One that was entirely mine in spirit, even if Kenneth's name was on the deed too. No key for anyone who hadn't earned the right to enter. Beatrice reached out occasionally, always stopping just short of a real apology. I kept her at a distance. Some relationships, once broken, can't be fully repaired.
And that was okay.
I still worked at the library. I still wore comfortable clothes. I still lived simply. But now, those choices felt like power instead of inadequacy. Maya thrived. She was confident now, kind, observant. She stood up for herself and others. She'd learned the difference between high standards and cruelty, between strength and control. On a sunny Saturday morning, I sat in my backyard with coffee and a book. Maya was inside, talking on the phone with a friend. Kenneth was grocery shopping. The house was peaceful. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, shrinking under criticism, doubting herself, enduring. And I thought about the woman I was now, standing in her own space, respected by her daughter, no longer invisible. Beatrice had wanted to break me. She'd wanted to prove I wasn't good enough, that I'd never be good enough. She'd spent years trying to grind me down into nothing. But here I was, still standing, still whole, still myself. They thought my silence was weakness. They thought my kindness was surrender. They thought my quiet life meant I had nothing to fight for. They were wrong.